Okay, so today my name is Georgia Bayliss-Brown, and on behalf of the Irish Aquaculture Technology and Innovation Platform, I have Ross Campbell today from CyberColloids, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about his work. The reason that we've decided to do this is because the IATiP conference wasn't able to happen because of COVID, and so we've approached some of the speakers to share some of their knowledge with you as an alternative so that we can still share innovations that are happening in the Irish space. So Ross, I wonder if you could introduce yourself and your company briefly, please.
Okay, so CyberColloids was formed 18 years ago by four ex-Unilever managers. We had got disillusioned with how multinationals behave, so had an opportunity to take redundancy. We did that and set up CyberColloids. Our expertise at that time was very specific. It was on food gums, food texture, and around polysaccharide chemistry. Today, 18 years later, we are much more involved with valorization of different biomasses, waste streams, side streams from food processing. One of the things that I have made a mistake in during my life is that as a chemist, I extracted substances from nature and threw everything else away. And that happens also in the food industry. The juice industry creates orange juice and then throws the rest of the orange away. So latterly, we've been getting involved with that side of the business to see, can we add value to the waste stream? So in fruits and vegetables, we've been able to create gelling fibers. Instead of extracting the pectin, we activate the pectin within the biomass and then can make gelling fibers, multifunctional fibers as we call them. And we've done the same with seaweed, and that's really the subject that maybe we want to talk about for Ireland.
Yeah, exactly. So taking on from there, could you describe your innovation then, please?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we were involved with a European project called Sea Refinery. So as I've said, instead of extracting the alginate that is in seaweed, we wanted to see what else was in the biomass. One of my mantras is stop thinking like a chemist, think like a chef. Think of the biomass holistically. So what we did was we took the seaweed, which was saccharina, and we took out the cold soluble fractions, which was high in fucoidins, which is interesting for the cosmetics industry. We then took out the laminarins, which was interesting again for personal care. And then we were left with the seaweed biomass, which was containing alginate. And we were able to convert that or process that in such a way that we ended up with a kelp fiber that gelled in the presence of calcium, just like sodium alginate.
Great. And so obviously that's of interest to the to aquaculture producers. So can you explain a little bit more about how they might use that innovation, why it's of interest to them, please?
Okay, so Ireland, the Irish Marine Minister has suddenly decided to issue lots of aquaculture licenses, which some have been sitting on ministers' desks for over 20 years. But suddenly, a lot of licenses were issued in 2019. So I was asked by BIM to look at what are we going to do with all this seaweed. So it's a little bit of a case that the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. So the farmers have now got the licenses, but there's not a clear path of what they're going to do with the seaweed. The licenses are great, but they're small. So if you're part of the study that we did for BIM, the seaweed aquaculture activity that's going to go in the North Sea is huge compared to what we're going to do in Ireland. So we're going to be small producers of farmed seaweed. So in that case, we're going to have to look at the higher added value products. So like I talked about, the sea refinery. So that's the challenge for Ireland. The report that we did was to be issued at a meeting in February, March this year. That didn't happen because of COVID. So it's sitting ready to be issued. And in the meantime, BIM have come back and we're hoping to do a further study looking at some of the specific markets, prices, cost of building a sea refinery. The challenge is going to be volume. Can we get critical mass to build a biorefinery? So that's where we're at in the Irish context.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just wondering, I guess there are a range of solutions available out there for seaweed producers at the moment, but I wonder if you can tell me how your work compares to other solutions.
Well, at the moment, from my background, the seaweed would be only looked upon as a source of alginate, carrageenan, or agar. As far as I'm concerned, we're not aware of anybody else thinking about doing a sea refinery where we end up with three income streams. One which is for cosmetics, personal care, as I said. The other, well, both are for personal care, and then the third is for a kelp fiber. We are working with a company in the Caribbean that is working with sargassum. Now, sargassum is a seaweed that is a pest. It's in the tourist area. It's annoying to tourists. So this company have decided to clear the beaches, and they are talking to us about a biorefinery concept, and they're talking about growing sargassum in large scale in aquaculture farms offshore. Now, if Ireland decides to go offshore, then we'll be at the races. We'll be at a different game. But if we're going to continue just small inshore farms, we're going to have to be very, very niche players. We're not going to be mass players. People are talking about making plastics out of seaweed, where we're talking about people growing seaweed in Indonesia every 6 weeks in mass scale. Now, again, so we're not at that game, and we shouldn't think we're going to be at that game. The brown seaweeds we have off the coast don't lend itself to 6-week cropping, whereas the red seaweeds in Asia do. So yeah, I think seaweed in Europe is beginning to gain momentum because it's seen as a carbon sequestrian. So it's suddenly become a talking point. There's a lot of work gone on biofuels, which I'm not a fan of, because there's so many other valuable things in the seaweed. It's a very expensive biomass to make biofuel from. So I don't think that'll ever happen. So our approach is slightly different in that we are talking about a biorefinery. There's only one biorefinery that exists in the world, and that's in Archangel in Russia. And it was built in 1918. And I visited it 2 years ago. So the future is in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. And you've already mentioned the work that you're doing with BIM, and I guess that frames part of the answer for this next question. But what's the next step for this innovation and the work that you're doing then?
So everybody wants to know the cost of building a factory. So the next stage is for us, excuse me, my granddaughter calling. Best to turn it off. So we need to work out, there's going to be, I think, 5,000 to 10,000 tons of wet seaweeds going to become available through the licenses. What is the capital cost of building a processing factory to handle that amount of biomass? And what's the variable cost of producing, and what's the prices, the products we can get? We're not in the cosmetic game ourselves. Somebody's not getting the message, are they? So BIM are going to be putting out a tender for somebody to look at the specific markets. What are the prices? What is the business case for actually building a little processing factory? The challenge for that industry is going to be collaboration.
Yeah.
Because each farmer is not going to have enough seaweed to do his own processing. They're going to have to be like form some sort of cooperative. Now, Ireland has been very successful with doing that in the dairy cooperatives, so I don't see any reason why we can't do that in seaweed aquaculture.
Yeah.
I have to say, and I've said it publicly, is that I did chair the Irish Seaweed Industry Organisation for a good number of years as a pro bono. I failed miserably to pull together the players at that time into a cohesive unit. They were very disparate, very distrusting, and if that thinking continues, well, we'll never go anywhere. And I said that at a conference in Clare last year. It's going to take a fresh approach, a collaborative approach to do something significant. The French have done it in Brittany, so if they can do it, why can't we do it in Ireland?
Absolutely. And so you said about this tender that BIM are releasing. Do you know what the timeline of that is, when people can expect to see the results, perhaps?
Well, the tender did go out, and it was a wish list, so nobody responded because they took it right to what was the challenge of building regulations and planning permission. Now, that's an area we can't go. So there's three things that need to be done. And one is the feasibility study of the cost of building a factory. The second activity is, what's the market? What are you likely to get for your products? More than food. I can address the food side, but I can't address personal care. I've now found somebody that will help us do that. And then the third bit is, okay, now we have a business case. Where are we going to build a factory?
Yeah.
So, and they had asked for all those three things in the last tender. So we had then a discussion. They said, why didn't you put in a bid? I said, well, because we can't do everything. So now they've said they're going to change the tender to just the first two. And we can do that. And I'm sure there's other people can bid for that as well. But those are the two bits that are needing to be done. Is it €1 million we're talking? Is it a €5 million investment? Let's get a roughly right figure. And then are we talking about products of €2 a kilo? Or are we talking products €20 a kilo?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I think that will be a fantastic study when it's complete and with very interesting results.
Yeah, so we were very pleased. Sarah did the work, and she did a fantastic job scoping the first one was scoping what's going on in Europe at the aquaculture level. What are other countries doing? What do we see as the drivers? And outside of Ireland, the drivers are carbon sequestration, biofuels in mass scale of Belgium, of the Netherlands, and of Scandinavia, because they're going to be building massive wind farms there in the next 20, 30 years. So you're going to have a whole area of water which you can do aquaculture where there's no boating activity. So that's a big game, and that's what we learned during that study. So as long as Ireland doesn't go offshore, there seems to be a reluctance to go offshore, and we stay with small farms, then we're going to have to do, as I say, we'll have to be a niche player.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. So if people are interested in the work that you're doing, how can they find out more, please?
Just contact me at ross@cybercolloids.net.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
No worries.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and best of luck.
Right.
Great. Thank you very much.